join us today in what are really interesting times. So we are doing a Facebook Live here today to go through some all of the things about building on your own land. Do want to go ahead and address a couple of things up front. You'll probably in your home or somewhere where you're in front of a computer, maybe gathered around family doing your social distancing. And we understand that, and that's why we're trying to get these questions answered for you. We typically hold these seminars in our design centers, but out of respect for the things that are currently going on and safety of everybody, we are going to try this on our Facebook Live and then post it later to YouTube. So we're so grateful that you're joining us. And you probably maybe see on the presentation that we've taken a little bit of liberty, hopefully not to offend anyone, but truly we feel here at Tilson Homes, we've been socially distancing since 1932. You see this image here. It's one of our customers' homes out in Washington County, Texas, actually about a mile from the Brazos River, very near where the Washington on the Brazos, where the Texas Declaration of Independence was signed, about a mile away from that. And you know, it's really important to us to be able to fulfill our customers' dreams of building a home out on their land. And predominantly, in fact, 91% of our customers are building outside of an incorporated city of any kind, out on space, in accordance with a term that, as far as I know, didn't even exist 2 weeks ago. So we're changing as fast as we need to, and we really appreciate you bearing with us. We're going to go through this seminar. Dawn Dantzler, our Director of Marketing, is our moderator today. Say hello, Dawn.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. And so if you got questions, you can type your questions in. Dawn will be moderating that. She's going to let me know, stop every now and then in case someone has questions, and I'll answer those questions. So again, Eric Alarid at Tilson Homes. My family's been building houses out in rural property in Texas since 1932, which in light of recent circumstances, that was during the Great Depression that we got started doing this. So we did it through then. We've done it through the real estate and oil crash of the 1980s. We did it through 9/11. We did it through the Great Recession of 08, and we will keep doing it even at current times and beyond. So, but we can't do it without folks like you. So without further ado, we're going to get started on what is this whole thing about building on your land. Again, chime in with questions if you have them, type them in, and Dawn will let me know where we're going if you have questions. So we're going to give you a guide to the process. We're going to cover various different things today. A little bit about Tilson, of course. We were founded in 1932. We've been doing this for the better part of a century. We've built over 40,000 homes across the state of Texas. And on average, about one family per day moves into their new Tilson home. And again, they're all in Texas. We've always only operated in Texas. We build for Texas families. It's really what we do best. So what does building on your land mean, and really kind of how is it different from buying a production home in a subdivision master plan type community? Well, it could mean really anywhere. It could mean a lot in a city. We do some of those. It could mean your land, your farm, ranch, retirement. A lot of people build second homes with us, lake houses, places they're going to retire, family land, places that they bought when they were still working, maybe in Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, or San Antonio, and they're going to move out on their 6 or 8 acres out in, Kerrville or Brenham or Wiley or Gonzales or Victoria or someplace. So that's really what it is. It could be anywhere. It doesn't have to necessarily be on a small lot or a big lot. So here are the things we're going to cover today. And again, if you want to chime in with questions, we will be ready to answer them. But we're going to first talk about how you define your needs and your budget. We're going to talk about identifying the site, not just the land itself, but kind of where on the land that the home should be appropriately placed. What the acquisition of a deed looks like if you haven't done that already. Choosing a builder, whether you choose Tilson or not, you're going to be able to benefit from this presentation. You're going to be educated, know a lot more. Our intent would be that you plan your home together with your builder. That's usually makes for a much more harmonious process. Review all the contracts and plans and financing before you get going, then go to construction. Try not to put the cart before the horse, and then all the way through construction, of course, and then completion, closing, and warranty. So I understand we have a question right this second, so we'll stop at this slide. And what have we got, Dawn?
So we actually, have a couple of questions. Linda is wondering why most of our home plans don't include garages as part of the design.
That is a great question, Linda. Thank you for asking. So actually, every single one of our homes has at least one, in some cases, multiple locations for a garage. We do attached and detached garages, of course. About 50% of our buyers do not end up doing a garage with ours. Because they have a large piece of land, they end up doing some type of a detached building, whether it's a metal building, a barn, or something like that. And then the other 50%, we do end up doing a garage of some sort, mostly attached. One of the things we want to be careful about is not having where we may think a garage is on a house to be the only place it could go, and that might turn a buyer off to a particular plan. In other words, I like everything about that plan, except I don't like where the garage is, and then they flip to the next plan. When the reality is we can locate a garage almost anywhere on a plan, as long as we can get some kind of a point of entry and have good attachment foundation-wise to the rest of the home. So it's really so that we can offer you flexibility. But every single floor plan that we have has at least one, and in most cases, two predetermined places where we would ordinarily attach garages for good performance. But great question.
Awesome. And then Renata is wondering if the value of the land plus the house cost typically appraises for higher than what our building cost is.
Ooh, that is a great question. Okay, so the answer is it depends on where it's being built. So the first rule of real estate, as most people know, is location, location, location. So for instance, you could take a 2,000 square foot home and be building it in a very affluent area, and it may appraise higher than the actual build cost. And you could take that exact same home at the exact same price and place it somewhere where maybe there aren't as many or not as supportive comps or comparable sales in the area. And then it may actually end up appraising lower. What's going to drive that is the sales that have occurred in the area recently. So typically the last 6 months, what other homes have closed and what has been that price at which they closed. So in some cases in rural areas, you may only have one or two or maybe three other homes that have closed in the last 6 months within 7 to 12 to 15 miles of where you're building, in which case that's going to really determine the overall value. So it's got really very little to do with the cost of the home itself. It has everything to do with what are other homes closing for in the area. Even if that means that they're older pre-owned homes, sometimes that's all that's in the area that is closed. So great question.
Okay, great. And then we also have Helen with us. She's saying they already have their land in deed and want to build with us. So thank you, Helen.
Hey, Helen.
But she still needs platting, survey, and water well, septic. She's wondering at what stage should she get us involved in the process?
Well, I would recommend you get involved as early as possible. That may or may not mean actually enter into an agreement yet. Once we take a look at what I know you mentioned platting. Sometimes that could take a long time depending on the city or county that's doing that or that's requiring that rather. But we can certainly help set you up with a surveyor that specializes in doing that in a particular area. But if that process is not going to take very long at all, then we would highly encourage you to go ahead and start, because there's things that we can do. We're going to talk about those in a minute that can be happening simultaneously while that platting process and water and all that's going on. So for instance, and that's one of the biggest differences with building on your lot versus buying a home that's either resale or in a production home. And that is, it's not just building. We're actually doing development and building, which is why it takes longer than production. You walk into a production subdivision, everything's pretty well there. The streets are in, the water meter is there, the water tap is there, the sewer tap is there, the permit has already been pulled for one of 2 or 3 house plans that could possibly go on that particular lot. So all of that legwork, which sometimes takes 3 to 4 months up front, is already done by that builder before the buyer ever even enters the design center. Whereas with build on your land, we are going to have to develop that property, at least to some degree, before we can ever start the actual construction of the home. So those things like your water well, septic system, those kind of things, or at least permitting for them, can be happening while you're doing design changes and choosing colors and meeting us out at the property to stake it out, which would really encourage you to do that really before you determine exactly where the well and septic are going to go, because we can help you with ideas that might be able to save money or things that you may not have thought about long term of what you'll be looking at off that back porch. So get us involved as early as you possibly can, and then we'll let you know if it's too early or not too early. Good. Okay.
And then Julio is also asking if we can perform a site visit as part of signing the contract, or if it's done after. His property is on a ridge near Lake Medina, so he wants to make sure that we take that into consideration when estimating his cost.
Yeah, so it's traditionally done afterwards. However, it doesn't mean we can't come out and do one initially, but just knowing the ridge or the out of level of the property doesn't tell the whole price of what it's going to cost to comply necessarily. You really can't find that out until you've done the geotechnical investigation, which is done by an engineer, and that is part of the price of our home. So you would certainly know before we ever started construction, or before you ever, certainly before you closed on the home, exactly what that's going to cost. But really, before we ever drive a nail, we would know every single detail about what it's going to cost to comply to make that property suitable for construction and last a long time for that foundation.
Okay, perfect. And then Amber says she already has her land deed and water well and is wondering what the next step is.
The next step would be to set an appointment at your nearest design center, which we can do for you through our online sales team that's here, and come in and take a look at different floor plans. And yeah, that's really the next step is move. That's the next step forward.
Okay, wonderful. I think that is all of our questions right now. So
Awesome.
if we want to continue the seminar, we'll break again for questions when they come in.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it. So we're going to move on to defining your needs and your budget. So it's really important to do that before you sit down and start pricing out a house. Honestly, figure out what you're going to use the space for. So space definition, configuration, elevation. Now, when we talk about elevation in builder or construction world, we're talking about the way that a building looks from a particular side. And we're going to talk about that a little more later. But elevation in this particular case doesn't necessarily mean up and down or slope. We'll talk about that later. But what kind of, what other homes are in the area? Do you want a 1-story or 2-story home? Are there going to be people living with you that may have some special requirements? Are you going to need maybe ramps or grab bars, other things that are about universal design, which is a term for being able to live in a home, or aging in place is another term for that. ACC stands for Architectural Control Committee. If you're building in a deed restricted subdivision, in most cases, there's going to be some type of entity, whether it's an HOA, homeowner association, property owner association, or architectural control committee, that's going to have some at least minimal guidelines, sometimes very stringent guidelines of what you have to do, such as square footage minimums, percentage of masonry around a home, how many feet off the road the house has to be, things like that need to be considered when you're defining your needs and your budget. What are you using the home for? Is this a home you're going to plan to retire to? Is this just a summer place? Is this just a weekend place? Or is this going to be your primary residence? Is it investment property? Who's going to be living there? And then, of course, most importantly, the budgeted cost of the project. What do you intend to spend, whether that's a cash payment for the entire thing, or if you're going to be taking out a mortgage to pay for the home, which is traditionally what we do. You can go online, and most of you have probably done this before, and just type into a search engine, Google or otherwise, home plan ideas. And boy, I'll tell you, you're going to get your fill of looking at plans. So that can be overwhelming. We would encourage you to, kind of discuss what your needs are really between whoever's going to be living there, and then get those in front of a consultant of some sort, whether it's one of our design consultants or whoever you're going to be using. Certainly bring your ideas. We have a great plan library. We have lots of designs that we've been building around Texas for the last 88 years. So we know what really can work well. We know about spatial configuration. I would highly encourage you get it designed by a draftsperson of some sort, whether that's an architect, maybe not, residential designer, but certainly someone who has experience in designing livable residential homes. Little simple things like, where to place the island, how far it needs to be from where the dishwasher is going to open and where the oven's going to open, and how far from the refrigerator, make sure those doors open, doors swinging into one another. Those are things that are hard to consider if you don't do this all the time for a living. So it's certainly something that you want to sit down with someone who's a professional to walk you through those things, to keep you from doing a customization that you may end up not being really satisfied with long term. And of course, then lastly, you want to be sure you have an upfront contract price that guarantees you the best value. We recommend that. There's builders that do it many different ways. There's builders that use cost plus. There's builders that use price per square foot. We prefer the upfront contract price so that all parties involved are very transparent, know exactly what they're going to be paying and exactly what they're going to be getting. So we'll pause here real quick, and I understand we have a question Miss Dancer? Fire away.
Yes, we have Linda who is wondering if we build in the Lakeway Spicewood area, and that's where we're
Oh,
yes.
the answer is absolutely. We build in the Lakeway Spicewood area. I'm a big fan of Opie's Barbecue out there. So, yes, we all up and down Highway 71. We built in Bee Cave, of course, and then on to the west, naturally, all the way out past Lakeway. The city of Austin, we do not currently build in. So if the land happens to be city of Austin, that's not the case. But as you go further to the west, particularly over the Pedernales River, you'll be into Spicewood, and we absolutely build out there. So,
okay, great. And Jeff is commenting how all of our home designs are showing composition roofs, and is asking if a metal roof is an option.
Great question. Yes, the answer is absolutely a metal roof is an option. We really require that it be a 24 gauge concealed fastener metal roof. In other words, no exposed fastener. Fastener just means screws or nails. So you don't want any of those exposed. A lot of builders will use the ones that have like the little rubber grommets on them. They don't last. The Texas heat will destroy them. The UV rays will erode them, and you will have a roof leak. So if we're going to do a metal roof, we really prefer to do the 24 gauge concealed fastener. It could be Galvalume or a colored metal roof, but we've done both. They don't. Quick misconception sometimes about metal roofs. With the technology in shingles now, you're not getting the value that the real cost difference is necessarily. So it's going to play a lot into aesthetics, how you want it to look, because they are significantly more expensive, because steel is so much more expensive than composition shingles, even the architectural dimensionals that we use. But as far as performance against hail and things like that, they do not perform any longer and are actually warranted shorter than a composition shingle roof. Most metal roof companies will not warrant it beyond 10 or 15 years, which is understandable because the steel expands, contracts, and it doesn't perform the same way that asphalt does. So, but we absolutely do them and do them on customers' houses. So.
Okay, and then Sonia has a quiz for us on our plan knowledge. She is wondering how wide the San Antonio and the Rio models are. So where would be best?
I'm going to let you look that one up for me, Don. I don't want to steer someone around. I will wager a guess. I'm going to guess 41 feet. And we're not playing by Price is Right rules. So if I get it right, I get it right, high or low. Anyway.
All right, Sonia, I'll try to find that answer for you.
That'd be great. Thanks, Don. Okay. So when we're looking at floor plans, these are a little bit more detailed than what you're going to find on the website. These are what we would refer to as a work copy in the home building world. So this gives us a little bit more detailed information, gives us interior room dimensions, so sheetrock to sheetrock, which are the dimensions that we actually put on our brochure slicks that you would download on our website, which again, we try to be just as transparent as possible. Even though overall square footage, we do measure that the same way that all taxing authorities, county tax offices measure it, which is from outside of brick ledge to outside the brick ledge. So they go by living area is measured by overall dimensions, excluding covered porches and garages. So this would be an example of a first floor plan. And then you can see the stairs over there by the master leading up to the second floor. In this case, there's a bonus room and a little half bath up there. So this is a little education on how to, look at a set of plans. You can see the outline of the first floor below that. And then, of course, this is what we mean when we're referring to an elevation. So what a home looks like from a particular side. This happens to be a front elevation, but there are front, side, and rear elevations so that our framers and customers and everybody involved knows, brick masons, stone masons know exactly what they should be putting where, what the roof pitch is supposed to be. So you kind of see all kinds of numbers there. You'll see the ridge vent that's used across the ridge in a climate zone 2 area. So anyway, just kind of give you some kind of an idea of what plans are looking like and what we're talking about when we mention an elevation. On the website, we have a really cool interactive tool that you can use where you can actually scroll through and make changes to the plans. We've tried to put, and again, this goes back to one of our users' questions, all the various garages. So we have side load garage, we have front load garage, we have alternative side load garage. So this one actually has 3 separate garage options out of the box, and you're not even limited necessarily to those. But you can get pretty freelance with this, and of course change elevation if you like. And so here's a side load attached 2-car garage coming into the utility room. You're going to have a big covered porch across the back. Looks like there's some box beam detail in the family room and a stepped or tray ceiling in the master. So anyway, and you can pick and choose these. And then obviously our design centers, we have pricing for all these various things based on where you're building, that we can be really helpful with that. So let's stop here and answer another question. Dawn, what do we got?
Willis is wondering if there's any price, if there's a cost for customizing our floor plans. How does that work?
Okay, so we don't price just to change it, if that makes sense. So there's not like a blanket, all right, we're going to charge you $500 for changing the plan. There are sometimes costs associated with that further down in the process. Obviously, if something's already been ordered or being taken off, that's a different deal. But as far as when you're looking at these things we were just looking at, these have prices associated with every single one of them. So for instance, yes, if you're going to add or extend covered porch, we have a line item price for that change, but there's no price that we don't charge just for making a change to our plans. All of our plans are customizable, and we go out of our way to make sure that our customers get what they want in their homes. And all you pay for is just the net difference between what's already there and what's being added. So for instance, on this tray ceiling in the master bedroom, the only charge that one would incur would be just for that 1 foot step up ceiling there. There's no additional like 50 cents a square foot or anything like that just for changing. I do know that there are some builders that do that, that make a flat blanket. Here's the charge to change our plans. And we do not do that.
Okay. And then Carla is asking if we build in Fredericksburg. So tell her how much we love that area.
We love building in Fredericksburg, all around Gillespie County. We've got multiple jobs going on over there right now. They work out of our Bernie office quite a bit, although I know of a couple of deals out of our Katy location that are building up, people who live and work or retiring from Houston that are moving out to the Fredericksburg area. So yes, we build all the time in Gillespie County. I think we even participated in the Gillespie County Fair last year, if I'm not mistaken.
We did.
All right, so we did. So yes, we absolutely do. Love our local communities, you bet.
And then we have another question that sometimes comes up, and I apologize, I'm not going to be able to pronounce this name correctly, so I'm not going to try. Questions about what happens to our model homes and why we don't sell those.
Great question. All right. What happens to our model homes and why don't we sell them? Well, we actually have before, which is why we don't now. So, you know, I've been doing this obviously all of my life, and my family has been doing it for 90 years, and we've tried every which way to do this. So the bulk of our locations, actually right now, with the exception of one, really, are located on major thoroughfares. 8 of the 11 are located on actual interstates: I-35, I-45, I-10, I-20, North Dallas Expressway, I think is what it's called this week, 75 North. So then you got Angleton and Bryan that are both located on 288 and Highway 21, or actually US 190 now, respectively. In other words, the land on which those sit is very expensive. So Tilson Homes owns every single location that you see on our website and out and about. We own the property. We don't rent. We don't lease. That property is owned by Tilson Homes. So that's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is it's great. We own the property. That's wonderful. We are full control of what we do there. The curse is those properties were bought in most cases many, many, many years ago. Most of them were paid for in the early 1980s. So 40 years ago, which means that, 40 years ago, 2 acres on I-45 north of Houston, Spring, Texas was fairly reasonable because there was nothing there. Today, 2 acres on I-45 north of Houston is, how shall we say this in business terms, cost prohibitive. So what ends up happening is floor plans, just like car styles and everything like that, run their course. There's a reason that Cadillacs today don't look like Cadillacs in 1981. And so what has to happen is we do remodel them usually 2 or 3 times over their life. And their life is typically from 15 to, in some cases, 25 years that we use these model homes. But at a certain point, the floor plan itself has run its course, has outlived it. It's no longer what people are interested in buying. And so because the real estate itself is so expensive to try to reproduce a design center, we choose to, at that point, we depreciated the model home just like any other asset that we do. And we donate everything that we possibly can on that home to a Habitat for Humanity or various other charitable organizations. Everything that can be donated, some things they will not accept, but everything that can be donated, we do. Furniture is usually housed, auctioned, or donated as well, whatever we have to do to make sure that's used to the highest and best standards. And then after that's all done, everything that's remaining that would be deemed unsafe, we demolish that, scrape it, and then we build a new home that's been designed. So anyway, that's the reason why. I know it sounds wasteful to some people, but the reality is it's the land itself is just so expensive to try and replicate that after 15 or 20 or 25 years, we really don't have many options. So hope that answers the question.
Okay, and then Karen is asking about the zip system wall sheathing, and if we build with that and what our opinion is.
Great question. So we have built with the zip system, Karen. So thanks for asking that. We've tried it out on a couple of homes. It's a viable option. We have determined that using the OSB sheathing and the Tyvek system, we feel like, in our experience, Tyvek's tape system, house wrap system, drain wrap system is a better and more reliable solution for meeting the air changes per hour, for meeting the energy standards that are pretty rigorous across the state these days. Zip system can meet them, and we have met them using the zip system before. The struggle with it is the tape and the application of the tape. So I don't want to get too into detail on it. It's a fine product. A lot of builders use it. It can work. It just, you have to be very, very careful about the tape that's used on the joints. And since there's way more joints when you do the zip system, because they're 4x8 sheets, we went with an option that has a lot less joints, which has less opportunity for failure. So we just went that route. But nothing against the Advantech folks. They're good folks. We use their flooring system, in fact. It's a very highly superior flooring system for subfloors. All right. So customization options. You can change anything. We just kind of talked about that. You can change whatever you want to change on our plans. You're not limited to the custom options that we have on the website, although we do know that those work well. Those have all been vetted through our design and drafting department. The doors are going to swing right, all those kind of things. So we will keep an eye on those things if you make other changes, but do know that that you can make other changes. I will buttress that with a caveat that is, not every change is a good change. So we'll try to guide you as best we can and give you our opinion on what we think long term a change might do. Obviously, you're going to pick everything inside this home. So, you know, the moldings, the cabinets, the color of the cabinets, what door styles are going to be on them, what the cabinet pulls are going to look like, countertops, light fixtures, light switches, plumbing hardware, appliances. It's a really, really fun and exciting thing. It's a real blessing for people. You know, I mean, it's the American dream, folks. Getting to build a home, period, or even owning a home is a great thing. Getting to build one from scratch, from the ground up, and see it happen is another thing. And getting to do that on your own piece of personal property is pretty unique and real special. We don't take it lightly. So we do encourage that you make it yours. Here's just a few samples of some of the different custom features you can do. You see some wood trusses, beams that we've done. That's in the Wimberley model there in Boerne, Texas. Of course, cabinet colors. That's the driftwood model there in Georgetown. And then you're looking at the rock wall there on the far right, and that's got our semi-frameless shower system, showing you just a really superior shower. Beautiful, beautiful master bath over there. So stone, brick, siding, you're going to pick everything. This particular home, the rock wall has board and bat siding, hardy plank siding. That's the painted portion you see above the brick, what's called a brick wainscot. And then you got some stone on there. Of course, all kinds of it's everything. Of course, you got stucco as well, and stone it's a little bit more contemporary look, maybe a little more Mediterranean look, but also an option. And then rear elevation. So we're talking about elevations earlier, or what a building looks like from a particular side. This happens to be the back or rear of the Driftwood model home in Georgetown, Texas. So you can see we've opted for the cathedral ceiling that runs from the family room all the way out through the covered porch. Got a big cedar truss out there. We've actually done some a nice wood trim detail up there called Real Soffit. It's a pre-stained product. It's an excellent product. And the back of this home happens to be hardy plank siding. We can do it in stucco. We can do it in stone. We can do it in brick, or whatever suits your need. So we have a question, so we'll stop here.
We have several questions about customization options.
Okay.
Amy would like to know if certain cabinet colors are more expensive than others.
The answer is yes. Certain cabinet colors are more expensive than others. So wood species plays into that, and then the way that the cabinet is finished itself, because we do a factory finish on the cabinets, particularly the painted ones. But all the cabinets are factory finished. The reason for that is just like your car, for instance, right? Your car is not painted at the dealership unless it's been an accident, which is not good. But your car is painted in a highly controlled environment, a paint booth at the factory where it's being built, so that they can control the quality, make sure the room is clean, make sure there's no dust or dirt on it. The exact same logic is the same with your cabinets. We much prefer those cabinets be finished in a paint booth that's controlled, cleaned. The sprayers are all good to go, not on a job site where there's sheetrock mud and sawdust and all kinds of other stuff flying around that's going to be on the finish of your cabinets. And the other thing is we can put a like a furniture type finish coat on there and bake it on there. And to do that on some cabinet colors cost additional money to get it done correct, so that the stain will make sure it maintains the color and its resistance to scratches. So yeah, they do cost.
Amy's also wondering, you said that there are some less expensive wood species. What are those?
So your least expensive wood species are going to be what's in highest quantity. So like your maples, oaks, those kinds of things. And then moving up into like an alder would be probably the next the next widely available, all the way up to like your cherry, hickory, those kinds of things are going to be your highest and most expensive, because those trees take longer to make big enough pieces because they're slower growth to be able to make cabinet or furniture out of. So your pecans, your hickories, your cherries, those are going to be your most expensive. And then stepping all the way down to oak oak and maple are typically going to be your entry level type of cabinets. Oak, maple, and in some cases alder, actually.
Okay, great. And then Tony is wondering if buyers can provide their own fixtures, like can they bring in their own farmhouse sink, appliances, those types of things.
So there's a few things that we have in the past let buyers do. Appliances is in some cases one of those things. We do need to have all of the specifications about that first, because we have to obviously provide the cabinet cutouts and the electrical or gas that have to go to those things. So we have to know exactly what that's going to be. The items such as like farmhouse sinks, plumbing fixtures, light fixtures, things like that, we're very, very hesitant about owner provide that, because we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know how they're warranted. They have to be, by law, we actually have to warrant the home. 10 years on the structural, 2 years on your electrical, HVAC, and plumbing, and then 1 year brick to brick or bumper to bumper, if you will. And in some cases, even the licensing from our plumbers and electricians comes into play of whether or not they can actually put some of those items in if they're not purchased from a factory, from the wholesaler, from the original distributor. So we have to take a real close look at those things. We can't just put anything in. A lot of the antiques things you buy at like an antique shop, we highly recommend against putting anything like that in your home. Whether it's a window fixture or sink or something like that, because we just found that they will not perform. They're going to end up causing problems. A leak is the major concern. But performance-wise, they just don't perform. What I do encourage you to do is bring us a picture, a sample, a link, or something to whatever you're after, and we have so many vendors and suppliers, there's a very good chance we can find something that is extremely close, if not the exact same thing as what you're looking for from one of our vendors that's going to back it up. But buying stuff off Amazon or Alibaba or some of those, that, trying to chase down who's responsible when something goes wrong, you're never going to get those people to perform to the level of customer service that we're going to demand from our vendors. So that's been our reasoning behind that. Really, it's really trying to protect the consumer, quite frankly.
Okay. We have some more cabinet questions. We're wondering which wood species is included in our homes, and then Amy also had a follow up on the what wood species are we doing the white in when we paint it white? What wood species is that?
So sometimes the white is going to be MDF, sometimes it's going to be a maple, and what's included is I want to double check because it could vary a little bit by region. So I want to double check the standard features on that before I answer that. And if I do that right this second, it'll leave out of the presentation. So maybe either Don could check that on the standard features or in the options addendum, and we'll get that question answered for sure. Because I certainly don't want to speak out of turn and get it, broadly speaking across the entire state and have it apply to various areas. So I can move forward and we can answer it, or have they got another question?
We have had a couple people ask about veterans discounts.
Okay. Yep. So there's different ways about that. There's of course VA lending. There's also Texas Vet lending. We highly recommend Texas Vet if you can qualify for that program. But we also comply with VA loans. At this time, we don't currently offer a veterans discount. What we do instead of help, what we try to do from a charitable standpoint is make a large impact that's going to really change someone's life. And the way we've chosen to do that is through a foundation called Operation Finally Home, which that organization builds mortgage-free homes all over the United States, but it did start here in Texas. It actually started south of Houston with the Bay Area Builders Association. A man named Dan Walrath started it. We've been very involved with that organization. We have built 6 mortgage-free homes for wounded veterans, people that have been disabled due to combat in some way. So that's been the way we have chosen as a family and as an organization to give back to our veterans, is in a way, it's a big way to us. We're not a gigantic corporation. We're a small family-owned business. And so rather than spreading money out and making a small impact, we feel that we've made and we've had feedback from other veterans that's a much bigger impact to the veteran community, is being able to provide someone who maybe can't work, can't get a job because of their disability, a completely mortgage-free home that we build out of our own back pocket. So that's how we impact our veterans. Questions, or moving on to property location?
We're good.
All right. So location, we talked about that earlier. Location. It's a big deal. Are you building in an urban area, in a suburban area, fringe or rural? You got to have a deed to the property. That's a very integral part of building on your land, is it does in fact need to be your land. So we can help you if you're maybe getting land from a family member or something like that. We highly recommend you get title insurance. Get to that here in a second. Do consider the value of surrounding homes. We talked about that a little earlier. That's going to impact the overall appraisal of the home. The house costs what it costs to build. A 2x4 costs what a 2x4 costs. A yard of concrete costs what a yard of concrete costs. But the value of the surrounding homes in the area will ultimately determine the appraised value. We need to take a look at the surface terrain, the topography. We talked about that earlier. Fellow in Medina County. Survey of the land. We highly recommend, if you haven't bought your land already, when you do make an offer to buy your land, you can actually make the seller provide a survey that you can make that a condition of the contract if you want to. And we do recommend you do that. And we also recommend that you have the surveyor note the flood zone on the survey itself, because we'll have to get that information anyway. Consider the footprint of the home, and then always purchase title insurance. Even if you're getting it from Mom and Papa, even if you're getting it from Mom and Dad, we highly recommend you go through a title company, let them do a title search, make sure that, just the chain of title going all the way back to the Spanish land grants here in Texas, or what the real estate refers to as the sovereignty of the soil. Make sure that chain of title has been complete at every transition of the home. Of the piece of property, I'm sorry. So title company does that, and then they insure that, saying that, hey, if anybody says it's not right, we'll step up and make you whole for that mistake. If you already have your property, no problem. We're going to open title on it with a title company. And if there are any issues, we'll notify you, and you will have to work with the title company to get those issues resolved. We can help in some ways, but they won't let us do everything, because a lot of it is documents that have to be signed, which we can't sign on your behalf because it's not our property. But certainly title insurance is a big deal. So here's an example of a survey. This is a boundary survey with corner pins located. So on the left side, you'll see it's got kind of the overall survey. And then what we've done is zoomed in here on the right, so you can see this happens to be of our lot, our piece of property, our 2 acres in Texas Grand Ranch, where our model home in Huntsville is. So it shows you, the dimensions of it. You got 397 feet down one side, but it also shows, it's hard to see a little bit, but you got a 20-foot building line on the back and the sides of the property. You've got a 15-foot public utility and nature trail easement. You've got a 75-foot build line across the front of the property. So, we own the whole 2 acres. It's all ours. We're allowed to use the surface on all of it, but we may not build any permanent structure within these dotted lines that you see. So that's why a survey is very, very, very important. And spoiler alert, fences are rarely a good indicator of where the property line actually is. Only the corner pins located or set by a registered professional land surveyor determine property value. And that's what these little iron rods are. Found 5/8 iron rod, 5/8 inch iron rod, set a 5/8 inch iron rod. So what that means is when this surveyor went out to give us this survey, he found this one, he found this one. He couldn't find this one down at the bottom near Texas Grand Circle. And so he had to set a new one. So all we're saying is, I know you got 2 acres to use. Let us take a look at a survey so that we can be sure we're using that in the highest and best way you possibly can. Because you can build fences all the way there. Driveways usually don't matter on property lines or building lines. Obviously, you can landscape all around those. But as far as permanent structure, your house, your garage, pool, outbuildings, things like that, typically cannot encroach over those building lines. They're trying to preserve some buffer zone between you and your neighbor. So they actually are real nice. We have another question on our things to consider. Dawn, fire away.
Helen is wondering what the difference is between a survey and a plat.
Great question. Difference between a survey and a plat. So a plat is going to be multiple lots. So you can see where this is. We got lot 1, you got lot 2, 3, 4 on the left-hand side of the screen there. A plat would have all of those lots on there, usually maybe by a block 1 or block 5 or whatever it is. In this case, it's block 1, and it doesn't always have this level of detail. It also doesn't always have the surveyor's stamp. You see that on the left-hand side down at the bottom. And then it has above that, there's some verbiage that says, I hereby certify that all that certification signed by the registered professional land surveyor on this specific lot. So that's the difference between a plat and a survey. A survey is on one specific piece of property. The surveyor has gone in, done their due diligence. They've set pins, they've verified easements. Whereas on a plat, it's just the plat is what the developer takes to the county and says, this is the subdivision we're going to build, and the county either says yes or no. Typically the one you're going to get is the one they approved and that they recorded in the deed records of whatever county in which you're building. But it's not typically going to have the level of detail that this does, down to the 326.3 feet. Also, plats can be very, very, very old. And sometimes people consolidate lots or cut lots in half. And a survey would have an updated version of that. So great question. Always get a survey if given the option between that and a plat. Yes, Miss Dawn.
Amber has a question. If they have an old survey that shows a home that was previously standing there, but that house is gone now, do they need to get a new survey?
All right. So the answer is going to be ultimately yes. It does not mean that we can't go ahead and start the process with that survey. So we're going to take the title policy, the title commitment that we get, which lists any kind of easements or exemptions, and we're going to marry that up with that survey and give that to our stakeout superintendent. We can go out there and go ahead and evaluate the site, look at some things, but before we would start construction, most likely we would require an updated survey just to see if any other easements have been recorded, because things can get recorded at the county that not everybody gets notified about, including current landowners. So we check that for you so that it doesn't come up at closing once there's already a new home built. But do bring us that one. We can certainly get started with that, locate where the house is going to go. And then depending on actually how old it is, it may be okay if everything's gone. But the mortgage company, certainly, if you are getting a mortgage on the home, they're going to require a final survey that shows the new home on that piece of property, not encroaching any building lines or property lines or setbacks. So great question. All right, so things to consider. Man, you want to think about the quality of construction and materials, how you're going to pay for this thing, if you're going to be financing it or paying cash, pricing methodology. You want to consider, again, this is whether you're building with Tilson or whoever, it doesn't make any difference. These are things you really need to consider. Their reputation, their capacity. And by the way, that could sometimes mean in the exact area you're building. Find out who you're building with has actually built where you're going to build. If you're building in an extremely rural area, finding labor that'll go there and perform, that's reputable and that will be held accountable, can be a very difficult thing relative to a major metropolitan area like your Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Houston. Flexibility, do you and your builder get off on the same page on how flexible they are? What's their experience? And again, rate their experience in the area they're building. Trust, integrity. If you're sitting down with somebody, and I don't care if you're designing a house or buying life insurance or buying a car or planning your retirement. If you're sitting across the desk from somebody and you don't trust what they're telling you, you need to get up and leave. It's not going to get better. In fact, particularly in a situation like this, it's only going to get more stressful. You really need to find somebody that you can trust, because you're trusting them with your land, and you're hoping that they have to know things about this process that you can't possibly know, and that's really, really important. And then ask for references always. Got no problem with that. Pricing methodology 1. This is my favorite part of the presentation. So if you're here and listen to this part still, you've hung in, and I appreciate it. You're going to get a little example here. I did go to Texas A&M, so I try to use real simple math. And so we're going to look at these two houses. They're very weird shaped houses, very small, very economical houses. The first house is 10 foot by 10 foot. So that is 100 square feet. Got it. Okay. The other house is 50 by 2. It is also 100 square feet. Not comfortable, but 100 square feet nonetheless. Now, let's look at the perimeter. A little bit harder question. So the house on the left over there, 10 by 10, that has got 40 lineal feet of perimeter of wall all the way around it. The other home, 50 by 2, has 104 lineal feet. Now, we haven't even started talking about light fixtures, plumbing fixtures, floor coverings, cabinets, whether they're painted or not, ceiling heights, whether we have trusses, whether we have whatever we've got going on. If we're 15-foot ceilings, 25-foot ceilings, 8-foot ceilings, just the lineal foot of wall alone, the building on the right has 2.5 times more perimeter than the house on the left, even though they're both 100 square feet. But you already know, without talking to any other trade, you're going to have more framing, you're going to have more sheetrock, you're going to have more waste, you're going to have more brick, stone, siding, stucco, whatever you use on the outside, 2.5 times more, even though the same price per square, even though they're the same square footage, rather. So what we're trying to illustrate here is price per square foot doesn't tell you squat. It tells you, rather, whatever the builder wants to tell you. And sometimes they include all of the slab area in that price per square foot. So living area and porches and garages. Hey, yeah, this house is $87 a square foot of slab area. But they don't say that. They say $87 a foot. So I would just encourage you, again, this is to educate you, not to try and sell you. Be very leery of asking price per square foot, because it does not tell you apples to apples. All it tells you is whatever the builder wants to tell you. If a builder tells you they charge X per square foot and that's it, they are getting paid for that house on the right, even if they're billing you the house on the left. because they have to, in case you choose that house on the right, charge enough money to pay for all the stuff, pay their trades, ideally, and have little bit of money left over so they can stay in business long enough to service your house. So be very, very careful about price per square foot, because it can be, not always, but it can be a very deceiving number. And the builder is going to know more about it than you do. So what I do recommend you do is upfront pricing, upfront contract pricing, line item. Hey, you said it's X dollars to upgrade the cabinets. Here's the line item here. You said it's X dollars to go from level 1 tile to level 4 tile. Here, boom, 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 boom. And that way everybody, and the price is agreed to upfront before we ever drive a nail. And everybody knows exactly what finishes. I mean, even all the way down to the grout color on the backsplash of your kitchen, that's going to be chosen and documented before we start construction. So, because that makes it a much more pleasant experience during construction. It seems a little tedious on the front end, but the last thing we want to do is have you stressed out running all over God's creation, trying to find, which appliances or which grout color or which, flooring you're going to be using. And we need it, by the way, next week. So we really try to make it a pleasant experience. And that's the reasoning behind that. But for sure, get that contract price up front and approve a full set of plans. We do ask that our customers sign a full set of plans, every page, front elevation, side elevation, rear elevations, floor plan, electrical plan, cabinet detail. It's all signed off on by all parties before we ever start construction, so that everybody knows, everybody's clear on what's happening. And if it's not clear, we encourage you to, hey, raise your hand and ask. I thought it was going to be this. It's not this. Let's go from there. Financing. If you're going to be paying cash, now's a good time for a bio break. You can take a break for the next 2 slides. For the rest of us who are getting a home loan. Oh, we have a question before we get into the financing. Standby cash buyers.
We actually had a question about financing. I just want to make sure. I think you're going to cover most of it, but asking about construction loans. And
okay. We'll get to that here in just a second. Great question. Yeah, I think we have a slide about that. So financing the deal. This is, credit score plays into financing, of course. The various kind of programs that are out there, whether it's the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, VA, we talked about, Texas Vet, conventional. We do encourage you to shop for the best deal. We do have 2 preferred lenders that we have, no financial benefit from, other than they move the process along faster. But we're not tied to them from a business perspective in any way. We recommend them to folks because they are highly specialized in helping our customers finance building on your land, which can sometimes be a bit of a weird duck for a bank that doesn't do it very frequently. The Fannie Mae or FNMA guidelines are typically, they want your most of them are looking at that back row, that 41% ratio, which is your gross monthly income. They don't want all of your long-term debt combined all together to be more than 41% of your gross, which is before tax. So take whatever your hourly rate is or your monthly salary is or what you made last year on your W-2. We're right up against tax season right now, so they got to have that information handy. 41% of that number should be all of your long-term combined debt. So that's a home loan, or if you have any auto loans, things like that, add all those numbers up and what they're looking for. And these are pretty conservative, by the way. You use these numbers and you'll stay out of trouble. You won't get in a bind. And we will not participate in putting someone in a financial bind. We didn't participate in the predatory lending that went on 12 years ago, and we're not going to do somebody that way. So we're not going to put you in a house that you can't afford, that do anybody any good. So financing programs, construction loan versus not having one, land home package and as built. All right. So you can either pay for a house cash. That's one way. You can get the way 99% of custom homes are built across the state are with construction loans. And they're called they're going to talk about it one of 3 ways, either construction loan, interim financing, or a draw schedule. Draw schedule is what applies to a cash transaction for sure, but it also will apply to a construction loan. What all 3 of those terms mean is that the builder is requiring that the landowner, the customer, borrow the money to build the home, to buy the materials. So to buy the concrete, to pay the concrete contractor, to buy the lumber, to pay the framer, to pay the roofer, to pay the sheetrocker, and so on and so on and so on. You typically close on that construction loan up front. typically within 4 to 6 weeks of when you sign your contract with a custom builder. You'll sign on your dotted line, and then the construction loan begins, and the interest starts accruing immediately. And it runs a lot like a taxi meter, for those of you who remember what a taxi was before there was such thing as Uber or Lyft. But when you hopped in a taxi and you took the taxi somewhere from the airport to your destination, whether you were moving or whether you were sitting still in traffic, the meter is going. The same principle applies to a construction loan. You sign the dotted line on that construction loan, and that interest starts accruing immediately, and the interest is paid monthly. It's typically an interest-only loan, by the way, it has to be, because the bank can't make money because it's designed to be a short-term loan. So it's interest only, and it increases every time the builder takes a draw on it. So the first $30,000 is X dollars a month worth of interest, and then they need another $30,000. So now you're paying interest on $60,000, 90, 120, and so on and so on and so on, until at the very end, all that the interest is due, and then you get your permanent loan, your mortgage. It's rolled into your mortgage. Now, some builders are doing things a little different now. Well, they won't make you pay the interest while it's under construction, but it's accruing, and then you pay it at the end. And on the rare occasion, they'll pay it for you, but they're putting it into the price of the home. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's not unethical. It's not illegal. It's how most custom homes across, actually, really the whole United States are built. Tilson we're old school. We're savers. We were raised in the Depression, so to speak. So we don't require our customers to get a construction loan. We build every house that is a mortgage out of our own back pocket, and we don't get paid till the house is completely finished. So we get you approved up front based on the appraised value and your equity in the property. We get you approved for that permanent loan before we ever drive a nail, so that we know and you know if there's going to be any kind of a down payment. Typically there's not, but that's done up front. And then once you're approved, Tilson runs all the risk. We build that house from 0 to 100% completely finished out of our own back pocket, and we don't get paid outside of the deposit you put with us. We don't get paid any money for that home until it's completely finished. You've done your walkthrough. We've completed the punch out list, and you're happy, and you go to closing at a title company. The mortgage company then funds us. So we take all that risk of that construction loan off the table, which means you got the upfront contract price set, and then we're handling the money in the interim. You're not paying anything for that money. You don't close on it. We're not borrowing it from anybody, so you don't have to worry about that. It's our money out there. So that's a huge cost savings for our customers, because you're saving the construction loan closing costs first, and you're saving on that monthly interest that's accruing for the duration of construction. So that's a construction loan versus no construction loan. Tilson does not require our customers to get a construction loan. That's very unique to us. You can roll, if you have a balance on your land, that can be rolled into the permanent loan, so providing that the appraisal will support it. But yeah, if you have a $20 or $30 or $50,000 balance on your land and you can get approved for that, then it will be rolled into the permanent mortgage. And then, of course, before we ever start construction, before you ever are in more than that under construction, rather, sorry about that, your mortgage company is going to provide us with an as-built appraisal. So we're going to give them a full set of plans and building specifications, and then they're going to give those to an appraiser, and they're going to appraise that home as if it were built today, what it would sell for based on the comparable sales in the area. Did I answer the question on the construction loan? Thanks, Dawn. All right. So we're up against our 12 o'clock. I want to make sure we get through, and we can stick around for other questions if we want. So once we get that done, you're going to have a site meeting with the salesperson and the building superintendent. Of course, we got utilities. We got to have a way to build this thing. We're going to help you through with, where power needs to come in from, how you get that set up. But in all these cases, the customer is very, very integral. We really rely on the customer to help us do this, because the land's not in our name. So in most counties, most places, the customer has to sign on the dotted line for the applications, for your ACC or Property Owner Association approval, permits from various counties and cities, obviously setting up power with whatever co-op that you're going to be using or power company, same with water. And then be sure we have good access to the site to be able to get heavy equipment in and out. So we'll get the site all cleared, stake out, or what we stake the home on the property, and then we get all the permits and everything done, all approvals done. mortgage is approved, and then we go out and build this house in the middle of nowhere, conveniently socially distanced from anybody else. In what we believe is a very beautiful way. So, any other questions that anybody has? We're ready to answer your questions. We've hung with us this long. We really appreciate your time and attention. We know everybody's doing something strange at this time. Oh, we do have one more question. Okay.
Yes, we have some questions. Tony was wondering what inspections.
Oh, great question. Thank you, Tony. Okay, so that's an awesome question. Even when we're building in the middle of nowhere, all of our homes are inspected by licensed independent third parties. So one of those third parties is inspecting for code, building code. So they inspect the frame, they inspect the HVAC, the electrical, the plumbing, that the insulation is done properly. They're inspecting the roofs. They're inspecting, that's at one stage. And then once it's finished, they come back out, they inspect all the finishes. Hey, are the plumbing fixtures actually, bolted to the sinks? Are the cabinets operational? Are the appliances installed to code? So that's all done, including the price of every single home we build. In addition to that, we have energy inspections done along the way as well. So actually, before the house is even started under construction, the plans go to an energy rater to be sure that we're going to meet the very rigorous energy standards that are required by law today. And not all builders do that, because, by the way, there is no code enforcement in the unincorporated counties of the state of Texas. The counties do not require building inspections, and that's a surprise to a lot of people. We get it done no matter what, because we're going to be in compliance. But Texas is a big state, and it's hard to police. So a builder can easily build a home and not have it inspected, and still the mortgage company doesn't necessarily require them. In the city, it's a different deal. You're going to have a city building inspector, so you got a little bit of security there. But out in the county, unless your building is using a builder is using a third-party licensed inspector, you have no idea if it's being built to code or not. So we have it inspected by an actual code compliance inspection, and from the energy compliance, we rate it up front, then we test it. He inspects the insulation, the R values, different things like that. He also does a duct blaster test to test the HVAC system for efficiency, as well as a blower door test to test the air changes per hour on the home, make sure it complies. If it fails, we get notified. We have to go out and redo it and retest until it passes. So, great question.
Okay, Julio has a question about flooring options. He's wondering about what options we have, and then specifically the pros and cons of stained concrete.
All right, Julio. Well, that's going to be a matter of opinion, so you'll get mine since I have the microphone. If Dawn has a different one, she can tell me. So we have all kinds of different flooring options. Everything from stained concrete is an option. Of course, carpet is an option. Tile is an option. Luxury vinyl plank is an option. Engineered wood floor, which is basically plywood or wood that's glued down. We kind of steered away from laminate or laminated plastic floors. The luxury vinyl planks kind of replaced that, so to speak. And then, of course, like I already mentioned, tile, but tile that looks like wood. Stained concrete is a viable option. We've had it. We've done it in several customers' homes. We've done it in our casita. That's actually where this picture is at Texas Grand Ranch, as well as we had it in our Katy Sales Center for a very long time. It's certainly not as cheap, not as inexpensive, rather, as doing carpet. Carpet's going to be your least expensive alternative. It's about the same price right now for us as doing about your level 1 or level 2 ceramic tile. The reason is you have to protect the concrete for the duration of construction, so it'll be pretty. So there's some cost associated there, a little bit of labor and material to protect the floor, and so. But I mean, obviously, it's pretty well bulletproof. I mean, you're not gonna hurt stained concrete. However, there are some things to know about its aesthetics. Concrete varies in shades. You can go out on a porch right now, whether you're living in a house or apartment or wherever, and just kind of look at the concrete or in a parking lot and see how many shades of gray you can kind of see. When you stain that like a terracotta or a slate dark color and then put a gloss on there, it's going to magnify those color variations. And for many people, that's why they're doing it. That's why they like it. But for some people, that's too much variation in a color palette for them, and they end up being a little underwhelmed with how that looks sometimes. So it's just going to depend on your perception of how much variation you want. That's one. The other thing about it is, over time, stained concrete does show wear patterns, just like carpet. So that finish will wear down in the highly trafficked areas. So kind of in your kitchen area, going from your kitchen to maybe a hallway or kitchen to your utility and garage area, it is going to show wear patterns that if you want to make them all look the same all the time, you'll have to have it refinished. So that's just something to be aware of. Again, some people, they love it. That's cool. I like the patina that it does. And some people, they don't like that much variation. So it really comes down to a matter of opinion.
So if you're somebody who's really looking for a uniform look, it's probably not for you.
Yeah, not a good idea if you want a uniform look.
Makes sense. So Herman is asking if he can wait to get his site staked until he puts in a driveway.
You can absolutely, Herman. You can wait to do that. There's pros and cons of doing that. Obviously, some of the pros would be, we can easily get to it. We can immediately do the geotechnical investigation or soil test after the stakeout, which we couldn't do if there's no driveway there. So that's smart. That's great. The drawback is if there's any other like septic permitting or different things like that we could be doing simultaneously before your drive is there. We won't be able to do that until the stakeout or the site evaluation is done. So, but if the site's relatively cleared, we, even without a driveway, we can still at least do the stakeout. And sometimes, based on what you and our stakeout superintendent discussed at the site, you may sometimes change where the drive's going to be. It may only be by a couple of feet, maybe by which road it comes in. But we don't charge to come out there and do it for our customers. So if we need to come out there and take a look at it first, we can. And if you'd rather wait till you have a driveway, that's certainly your prerogative.
Perfect. Amber is wondering, when she got her land, there was a lot of trees on it, so they've done a lot of the clearing work and had the stumps removed. Is that going to increase the value of her land when it's time to go to construction?
Again, that will be up to the appraisal. It's going to be driven by the values of the other homes or land in the area. I mean, philosophically speaking, any dollar that you spend on the land is theoretically a dollar more that you could get for it if you were to sell to someone else. In other words, the next person who buys it, for instance, would not have to clear it. But that doesn't always bear itself out in the appraisals. So that, unfortunately, there's just no definitive answer to that because the answer relies too much on the other homes that have closed in the area that have little or nothing to do with your site itself. So I wish there were a more concrete, yep, guaranteed. If you spent 10,000, you get 10,000 more, but that's simply not reality. And I wouldn't want to mislead someone into saying that.
That makes sense. Renata is wondering, during construction, how frequently we're in communication with our homeowners on process. Like, is there a regular schedule, and how often?
That's a great question. And if we sometimes miss anywhere, it's sometimes this, as I think all humans are. We're certainly not perfect. I wish we were, but we're not. However, that being said, we do try to depend greatly on the customer. So, for instance, when you have your pre-construction meeting or meeting towards the end with your salesperson and your builder before we start construction, we try to get an idea then of, hey, what is your level of expected communication? Because some people want to be talked to, every day, twice a day, and some people are like, don't call me unless you need something from me. And we sometimes have to have the same building superintendent communicate with both types of people. So the answer to the question is we can and should communicate as often as the customer wants us to. And whether that's, every day or 3 times a week or twice a week or once a month, I probably wouldn't get on with once a month. You're going to get over communicated with if you want once a month. Sorry, we're not doing that. But, I would say let your building superintendent and your consultant know what level of communication you're expecting, and we'll do everything we can in our power to meet that expectation or exceed it. If you're currently not receiving a level of communication that is desirable to you, please let me or Dawn or your salesperson or your builder know, and we will do everything in our power to get that rectified. Absolutely.
Michael is wondering what would be the best way to see what the front of the house looks like if they add a garage?
So we typically would have elevations, depending on which plan it is. We have that information at our design centers. We can show you what that's going to look like from a front elevation, side elevation. Now, if it's something other than what our custom options are going to have, then we probably wouldn't be able to show that until we, of course, I mean, we're going to draft a full set of plans for our customers. And in some cases, a consultant will draw something on the plan, garage, something like that. It gets to our design drafting department, and then we get some feedback, which feedback sometimes is a fancy word for this is not going to work. So we get that feedback. We go back to the customer. We say, hey, look, we drew it this way. Drafting got it. Really not going to be good for the roof line, or maybe it'll create a flat valley over here, or you're going to have a big puddle there, and we don't want to put something in the field that's not going to work for you long term. So we would obviously revise that, but certainly before you're very far in the process, you're going to see exactly what the house can look like from all sides. If it's one of the custom options we have on our website, again, we actually can show you that at the design centers.
Perfect. And Mary is wondering how long the whole process takes.
Whoo. Yep. How long is a piece of
bringing out the hard questions, Eric.
Yeah, that's good. Good. So again, because we're talking about development as well, so it's never going to be as fast as a production home ever, because you're building on a piece of property that's in most cases never been touched by human hands. So there's all kinds of development things that have to happen first. So we have customers that are closing within 7 months of when they sign their contract. That's design and evaluation and septic and everything. And we have some that are closing 18 months or more after. And all that depends quite a bit on exactly where the home is being built, what type of requirements are being done. If the city or subdivision has special requirements like mitigation studies, drainage studies, conveyance studies, street bores, road cuts, all these things that go into. So there's really not a average. The answer is it depends. The good news is, again, with Tilson not requiring a construction loan, we already said whose money is it on the ground the whole time the house under construction. So it behooves us, it behooves Tilson to get the home done in an expeditious way, but we will not sacrifice quality or code to make that happen. So the sooner the better is the short answer to that. And the long answer is it just depends. It depends on exactly where the home's being built and what the requirements are there, and really the how active the customer is in helping through some of those things. Because again, in a lot of cases, when we need help with that, various cities, counties, municipalities, subdivisions, you as the landowner are always going to have more clout than us as the builder. You're a taxpayer, you are a voter, or will be potentially, given 'tis the season, right? You got commissioners coming up for election. So they're going to listen to their constituents a lot more than they're going to listen to a business entity. So in cases where we do hit snags with those types of municipalities or powers, we help our customers any way we can, but we do lean on them to help us expedite that process. Because again, those places are going to respond much more to you as the landowner, as the permanent citizen, than they are to us. Great question, though.
Great. So Maria is wondering what lenders we use in Bertram, Texas.
Sure. Yep. We use CMG Financial, and we also use AMCAP Mortgage. Both of their contact information, you can get it from our design center in Georgetown, or from any of our online sales counselors. We have that as well.
And then a question on financing. I know sometimes people get a little confused about this. Like, if they've already paid off a lot of the land, are they having to finance the total price of the home, or just whatever the remaining balance is?
Let me make sure I understand the question. So, for example, they bought land for $50,000. That land is paid for? Or
yes.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
The question was, I've already paid off half of the home. Do I have to finance the total price or just the remaining amount?
Oh, you just have to finance what's the balance that's left. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
That's something people get a little confused when we start talking about the appraised value and how that's what we're you buy with the 10%, but you're only financing what you actually owe. If you've already paid for it, you're not financing that in.
Great point. Yeah, great point.
Okay, wonderful. And then one last question, I think. David wants to know about our energy efficiency options. Talk about that.
Yeah, great. So we build predominantly, only in 2 climate zones in Texas. The EPA has set up climate zones across the state. Actually, it's not the EPA. It's a governmental entity has set up various climate zones all the way across the United States, from climate zone 1 all the way up to, I don't know, whatever Alaska has to build to. Not on our radar, but we build in climate zones 2 and 3. The higher the climate zone, the bigger winter that area gets. So climate zone 2, we're going to be doing standard no matter what. We're doing R15 wall insulation, R38 in the attics, and we have to meet an air change per hour of 5 or less. And that's, again, all has to be inspected and tested. The code actually requires R13 in the walls and either R30 or 38 in the attic. So we're already exceeding code in both instances. Climate zone 3, what we're doing is spray foam insulation, open cell spray foam insulation. And climate zone 2, I'm sorry, I skipped over. We're also doing radiant barrier decking. We do full OSB wrap, full Tyvek drain wrap all the way around. That's all part of the energy. The windows that we use, which are double pane vinyl tilt sash with a U factor of 0.26 or lower. It's a little bit meaty and detailed for this, but we have a different presentation energy that we may do. So that's all. And climate zone 3, like I said, is the spray foam insulation. Same windows, same shingle package. The HVAC is a little bit different animal. We use 15 SEER Linux equipment in both areas, climate zones 2 and 3. However, in climate zone 3, we do have to include a dehumidifier because we're using that spray foam insulation. We're completely sealing up the attic area. So we have to provide a way to get the humidity that builds up in the house out of the house. Whereas with climate zone 2, we have ridge vents and pre-drilled ventilated soffit vents that can carry that moisture out of the house passively. Whereas in climate zone 3, where we spray foam, we have to actively do that with a dehumidifier. We do offer spray foam as a pretty inexpensive option in climate zone 2, if you rather have that. You don't have to have it to meet the energy code, but we do offer that. We have found that the spray foam insulation is probably the most efficient way to energy efficient your house. And not because the R value is any higher, because it's actually not. But it's because you have less air leakage. So all that air that you're paying to heat and cool inside that home, the spray foam insulation does the best job we've found. And this is, again, we were going back to the Advantech zip wall system. It did not hold the air in as well as a Tyvek wrap house with spray foam insulation. And we can do that for actually less cost than the zip system. So, and it holds the air tighter. So.
Wonderful. Actually had a couple more questions to come in. Eddie and Lupe are wondering if we build in Harris County.
Eddie and Lupe, we do build in Harris County, in unincorporated areas of Harris County. So we do not build inside the city limits of Houston, but we do build in Harris County. We have one right now in Cypress that's under construction. We build out toward east. But if you're inside the city limits of Houston, we are now able currently to build inside the city of Houston. Aren't able. We've chosen not to.
And then Karen is wondering if she kind of has an idea of what she wants to build, but it's not in our portfolio. Should she buy a plan in advance, or can she work with us to come up with one?
Do not buy it. Yeah, great question. Yeah, Karen, do not buy that plan. Bring us your ideas. Obviously, there's copyright reasons. We will not duplicate the plan exactly. For very ethically first and foremost, but then even copyright behind that. But chances are you were going to be making changes to that plan anyway. Bring it to us. Let's make sure that
we're going to redraw it anyway, right?
We're going to redraw it anyway.
Our team's going to redraw it. So there's really no reason to buy a plan.
That's a great point, Don. Thank you. The plans will not be for our energy code, our electrical code, our residential code that we have to adhere to here in Texas. So yeah, don't buy the plans, because they won't be there. They'll be to some other place, almost assuredly not here. So,
save your money.
Yeah. Great point.
And I think that is all of our questions. So thank you, Eric, so much for doing this.
You're very welcome.
Great. I know everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I hope you did. And again, we'll be posting this to YouTube later. So if you feel like you missed part of it, want to go rewatch, you can. Also, we're going to be trying to do more of these. The next one, I think, is Tuesday. Is that right, Dawn? We're going to try and do?
Yes, we're currently thinking Tuesday at 2:00 is when we'll be doing that. I'll put out an official announcement, but we are wondering, what everybody, what topics would you like to hear? Did you like this seminar presentation? Would you rather just have kind of an open forum for questions? What would you prefer?
Brilliant. So yeah, bring us your ideas, comment to us, post it on our Facebook page, Instagram, even our YouTube channel. Post it any of those places what you'd like to hear. You can also email us at tilsonnews@tilsonhome.com, and we'll take the advice that way as well. Thank y'all so much for doing this. I know that everybody is in kind of a weird place right now with everything that's going on. So thank you for your patience. We're kind of new to this too, but we will get through all of this together with some resilience and some grit and some good old-fashioned American hard work. So we rely on you very much to do that. Support local businesses right now as much as you can, and reach out if you have any questions at all. And we'd love to help you guys and make you part of the Tilson family. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.